Craig, you're very, very welcome to the show.
Yeah, thank you so much, Harzad. It's great to be here.
Craig, thank you so much for taking out the time. We understand this must be a very busy time of the year. Uh, Craig, I would like you to tell our viewers something about yourself. Were you born on the island? Did you grow up on the island?
Yeah, I was born in Huntington, and I was raised in Northport. Graduated Northport Public High School.
Mhm.
I went to college at American University in DC, but I'd spend my summers back on Long Island working for the State Department at JFK Airport. And then after college, I worked for Senator Kennedy in DC, but then moved back to Long Island to work for Congressman Steve Israel in his Hauppauge office. I went to law school up at Quinnipiac in Connecticut. Again, spending my summers back on Long Island. I worked for the Suffolk County District Attorney's Office and clerked for New York Supreme Court Justice on Long Island. And after that, after graduate law school, I moved back to DC, and I was in DC for 8 years, working for the federal government. I was an attorney for the FBI and the Department of Justice. I prosecuted drug traffickers, terrorists, and money launderers. I interviewed leaders of a terrorist organization in Colombia and was able to recover millions of dollars that was used to compensate the victims of their atrocities. I also led the Bernie Madoff victim remission case, which allocated $4.4 billion to the victims. And then after 8 years in DC, I moved back to New York. I worked for JP Morgan Chase. And then I was appointed assistant counsel to the governor a couple months before the pandemic. And I was the chief legal advisor for all financial matters for the state of New York. And then during COVID, I implemented telehealth. I waived copays for the vaccine. And then after that, I became a criminal defense attorney and then a judge in New York City. And now I'm the Democratic nominee for State Senate District 2, which includes all of Huntington and Smithtown. And yeah, and I'm just excited to to hear from you and talk with your listeners.
Craig, we get you have a long history of public service. We would like to know what was your inspiration to run for this office at this stage of life?
Yeah, so when I was in the governor's office, I had imposter syndrome at first. Like, am I really like the best person to be doing this work, especially during a pandemic? And then dealing with the Senate and the Assembly and in the legislature, I was like, oh, I can definitely do this. And I was very successful, working with a lot of experts and stakeholders, identifying problems and finding solutions for these problems. And we did a lot of great work that helped a lot of people and work that I'm incredibly proud of. And that was kind of like my reason to run for office, because I recognized that in Suffolk County, we don't have a seat at the table, and we're not getting our fair share of funds. And my priority is to ensure that Suffolk County gets its fair share of funds.
Um, Craig, our community, most of the viewers of this program are still new in this country, are still new to the politics of this country. Can you tell us a little where exactly your district is, District 2?
Yeah, so it's the entire township of Huntington, which includes, my hometown of Northport, and but the entire township of Huntington, and then the entire township of Smithtown. So it's a population of about 250,000 people, and yeah, it's wide range of issues and concerns. Like Huntington, it's more democratic, while Smithtown is very conservative, and there's like a big MAGA population out there in Smithtown. But anyone who is in those two townships, I will represent.
Craig, let's go straight to the issues. What do you think are the main issues in this election, particularly facing your district?
Yeah, so we actually did a poll to actually find out what the most important issues are. The economy is the biggest issue. Inflation, the cost of living, property taxes. We spent a lot of money on property taxes on Long Island and Suffolk County. which is why, my top issue is to make sure we get our fair share of funds, because, Long Island is an ATM for the state. We
Mhm.
get 50 cents on the dollar, and New York's a donor state. Most of the money leaves New York and goes to other states. So I want to advocate for our fair share of funds. And that's why it's important that we elect suburban Democrats to represent us in Albany, so we can identify a lot of projects on Long Island that need funding, and to lower the financial burden for the taxpayers on Long Island, and to provide good, clean jobs, and to lower inflation, and to make Long Island more affordable. The other
Craig, yes, I'm sorry, Craig. Before we go to the next one, this issue is so important for all the Islanders. We are losing our kids to other states. People, despite getting good education, these kids, despite getting good education and good, well-paying jobs, still can't afford housing on the island, and that's why they're losing. We have so many neighbors who are going to North Carolina and other states. Do you have a plan to address this issue?
Yeah, so affordable housing is a big issue, because you're exactly right. We pride ourselves on having the best education on Long Island. We spend a lot of money educating our children, but when they graduate, they can't afford to live in the communities they grew up in, and that they love, and they are, we're paying to educate North Carolina. So it's really important that we, keep, the kids that we raise and grow up here, so they can, contribute to our economy. And that's why affordable housing is incredibly important. And that's why, we want to work to provide tax incentives for more affordable housing. There's a lot of fear tactics when it comes to affordable housing. There's the perception that affordable housing would bring in crime, but it's not true at all. I mean, it's to provide housing for teachers, for first responders, for restaurant workers, all people that are, productive, and contribute to the economy, and it's good for economic growth. And so, we just had a project in Northport. It was an affordable housing development that people were fighting for 50 years, and it's finally being developed right now, and it's beautiful. It's a gorgeous, gorgeous project. So I think it's really important to work with local communities to identify needs, and work with developers to provide smart development. But it's also important that we provide funding for infrastructure, and that's another thing that we need to work on. To allow for these affordable housing, we need to improve the sewer systems on Long Island. Proposition 2 is going to be on the ballot this election. It provides funding for new sewer systems on Long Island, which is, I think, incredibly important for our water, because a lot of nitrates are leaking into the water. So it's great for the environment, but it's also going to be great for development, because when we have those sewer systems installed, it'll be a lot easier to build more housing projects. So providing funding for infrastructure on Long Island, and then tax incentives, working with developers to provide affordable housing. I think, we could definitely make Long Island more affordable, and so that our children can live on Long Island.
Mhm. We can't emphasize enough how important that is for the residents of Long Island and all your constituents. आज ਅਸੀਂ ਗੱਲ ਕਰ ਰਹੇ ਹਾਂ ਨਿਊਯਾਰਕ ਸਟੇਟ ਸੈਨੇਟ ਡਿਸਟ੍ਰਿਕਟ 2 ਦੇ ਕੈਂਡੀਡੇਟ Craig Herskowitz ਨਾਲ. Craig, you did mention crime, and I must tell you that always is a primary responsibility of the government, wherever it is. And people do feel concerned about the state of safety in New York. Some of it, might be rhetoric from the other side or whatever, but there is a general concern. And I feel that your background, having worked so closely with FBI and other agencies, could be really used in the current political scenario. Can you tell us, what do you think about the state of safety in New York, and particularly on the island?
Yeah, absolutely. And you're right. I have a background in law enforcement and in government, and I am very serious about safety. And you're right. There was a lot of fear tactics when it comes to safety and crime. Republicans were very successful running on the bail reform law. I also did criminal defense work, so I saw firsthand how the bail reform law worked. 99% of people return to court, no issues, no problems, because bail is just to ensure people return to court. But you have like that 1% of people who get released and then commit another crime. The legislature has fixed it. They put a new harm on harm fix to the legislation. So if someone robs a CVS or shoplifts from a CVS, gets arrested and then released, and then robs CVS again, the judge does have discretion to impose bail. So there's a lot of fear tactics when it comes to bail reform and safety. But data showing that crime has gone down significantly. But it's important that people feel safe, and recognize that our community stands together, that we support each other, and we want to make sure that everyone feels safe and secure in their homes.
uh, Greg, one issue that we are a coastal region, and something that weighs very heavily on everyone's mind, and particularly with the recent hurricanes that we have had, we are all concerned. Another safety issue now. Climate is just not something that we talk about. It has become a safety issue. How do you see that, and how do you plan to address the climate crisis?
Yeah, and you're right. We're a coastal community. We want clean air, we want clean water. Coastal erosion is a big problem on Long Island, so we need to work towards clean, renewable energy. And we want to work on technology that gets carbon emission out of the atmosphere, gets the nitrates out of our water. We want to get rid of these plastics that are polluting our environment. So it's extremely important that we provide more funding to protect the environment, and to ensure that that our children and feel that they have the clean air, they have the clean water. Long Island, we used to have like the best water, and then it went to the worst, and now everyone has multiple filters in their homes. So that's why I strongly support Proposition 2, which is on the ballot this year, which is going to help clean the water on Long Island. And so I encourage everyone to vote Proposition 2 on this election. I think it's like a 15-cent increase in that, but all the money is going to go towards cleaning the water on Long Island.
I'm sorry, Craig. Can you elaborate a little more? What exactly is Proposition 2?
Yeah, so Proposition 2, a lot of it is providing funding for the new sewer systems. Because most homes on Long Island have septic tanks, and these septic tanks have been leaking into our water. And so the new sewer system would allow for easier waste disposal and cleaner waste disposal. And so a lot of you'll start seeing more construction and development of these new sewer systems that will prevent nitrates from leaking into our water, and also and to clean the water that we have now, because there's a lot of contaminants in our water, and we want to be able to have clean drinking water, and that's not something that's controversial. Everyone wants clean drinking water. And, so we fully expect Proposition 2 will pass. It's getting bipartisan support, but I think it's going to go a long ways to help improve the environment on Long Island. But more on on the macro level is more clean renewable energy. We want clean energy that provides good jobs, but also is good for the environment. Because you're right. I mean, it's really scary to see what's going down in Florida. With these hurricanes that are being enhanced by climate change, and it's extremely dangerous. So we need to do whatever we can to improve our environment.
So Craig, for our viewers' better understanding, we're seeking this money from Albany or Washington?
So we need both. So we need federal dollars and we need state dollars. So I'm on the state level. So my focus is getting state dollars to fund projects on Long Island. Like we have solar or wind turbines out in the east of Long Island that providing clean energy, solar panels providing clean energy. That's something that we can use state dollars for funding, but also we need federal dollars as well. So we're doing a coordinated campaign with John Avalon, who's running for Congress on Suffolk County, and so we're going to advocate for more federal dollars to come in as well. We expect that the Democrats will take the House of Representatives in this election.
Mhm.
Hakeem Jeffries will become Speaker of the House. So we'll have a native New Yorker as Speaker of the House, which I think will have a tremendous advantage in helping us secure more federal dollars. But yeah, the state and the federal government need to work together to improve the environment. You know, we'll do what we can on the New York level, but this is a national issue. Climate change is a global issue. So everyone, all countries need to work together to improve the environment.
Great. I would just like to, seek a comment. We on the Long Island are amongst the highest taxpayers in the country. Do we in the state get fair share of what we are contributing?
No, not at all. None of us are getting our fair share. We pay a lot of money for our education because Long Island has extremely values our education system. Whenever there is shortfalls in education, Long Island steps up to provide the funding. So we need to make sure that our schools get a lot of state funding to relieve some of the burden that we have for our taxpayers on Long Island. But like I said before, we get 50 cents on the dollar. Most of the money is leaving Long Island. So we are absolutely not getting our fair share of funds. And that's why it's important that we elect suburban Democrats who will be in the majority conference. Because Democrats control the House and the Senate on the state level, but a lot of them are from New York City. So New York City is getting a lot of the attention, while Long Island is getting ignored. So we need to have suburban Democrats who will be in the majority conference that could advocate for more dollars coming into Long Island. And that's, my background being the chief legal advisor for the governor for financial matters. I oversaw the Department of Tax and Finance. I oversaw the Department of Financial Services. So I know how to work in Albany to bring those dollars back to our district.
Craig, what do you see as other issues of importance to the constituents?
So the other biggest issue is the migrant crisis. And there's a lot of resentment from people in the community that blame Democrats for the migrant crisis. There's the belief that a lot of people, they work their 9-to-5 jobs, they pay, provide for their families, and their tax dollars are going to house migrants in New York City. So there's a lot of resentment there. So we definitely, pushing back on that, false narrative, because there's a lot of, attacks against the migrant community, and it's just fear tactics. Democrats are looking to fix the issue, while Republicans just want to keep it as a wedge issue and blame Democrats. So it's really dividing our country. It's creating a lot of hostility towards the migrant community and a lot of resentment. And what people need to understand is that claiming asylum is 100% legal. And these asylum seekers, they want to work, they want to pay taxes, they're great for the economy. There's a lot of jobs that, especially in the farming industry on Long Island and other businesses where the migrants want to work. And the problem is they're not allowed to work for 90 days while they're, while they first enter the country. And so the government puts all these hurdles so the migrants can't work, and then the taxpayer end up having to pay for housing because the migrants are sent to New York, from Texas. Texas is busing up the migrants to New York, and then New York does what the right thing is, providing housing for migrants. Because it's inhumane to let people just live on the streets of New York. So I recognize that there's an economic issue with the migrant crisis. So we need to work with the federal government to get more federal dollars to help, again, alleviate the tax burden from New York, because it's not fair that New York bears the brunt of the cost of housing the migrants when this is a federal issue and a federal problem. But I think we definitely have to address the migrant crisis and work on comprehensive immigration reform, because Democrats are the only ones who want to fix the issue, but Republicans just want to run on fear and attack minority groups, and which is really horrific and un-American.
You talked about the immigrant issue, and we just wonder if there's much that the state can do about this issue. We understand that it's a federal issue, but I would bring something to your attention. I know you were very effective in your role at the time of COVID. You very successfully handled the situation at that time, which I would invite you to speak about your experience at that time. But I would just tell you something that's been happening because of this migrant crisis. Country like ours, they say the rich, the big ones are always protected. People sometimes at the lowest level might be protected as well. They are given free housing, but the small business, the average Joe, the average person. I'll give you an example. There are hotels where the migrants are housed presently. Now, some of these hotels have the rooftop bars, a small restaurant, a small bar. Now, that hotel owner has been provided full occupancy rates by the government. The migrants have been provided housing. It's the small businessman, the small bar owner who has suffered, and no one has thought about him. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, and absolutely. So, when I was, with the governor's office, I worked on small business tax credits because, we extremely value the small business owners, the mom and pop stores and restaurants. I mean, they're crucial, for our community. And so, that's why I recognize that, we need to focus more on the middle class and the small business owners, provide, make it easier for businesses to operate and work. And I know a lot of restaurants, they still haven't fully recovered after COVID, and it's really hard running a business. So we want to make it easier. We want people to be successful. So we can work on providing tax credits and incentives to make it easier for small businesses to thrive.
We still see so many businesses who have not recovered from what they suffered during the COVID time. There's so many stores that are still empty on the Jericho Turnpike. I'm sure you have noticed that.
Yeah, yeah, and it's a big issue, and that's why we need to make it easier for small businesses to run and operate. And I know there's a lot of risks involved in starting a small business. It's a lot of work, and that's the kind of behavior we want to reward. We want to reward hard work and people taking chances. And so I think more needs to be done to help the small business owner.
Great. Do you have a plan to increase economic activity on the island?
Yeah, and so I think the most that we can do is funding. That's the big issue, is bringing the money into the district. So it's identifying projects and areas that we need the funding, but also working with the Department of Tax and Finance to provide incentives for economic growth. So we want to work with the communities to identify all the needs in those communities and what can be done to make it economically thriving in those communities. And so each community has their own individual needs. So I think it's important to work with all those communities. So I'd love to hear the thoughts of your community, what the need is there.
No, absolutely. And I'm sure you'll always be open to communities reaching out to you, individuals reaching out to you with their issues, because everyone needs help. We need help, and particularly in this environment that we are in presently. We have a presidential election over our heads, and we don't know which way it's going. A lot of people are saying this might be one of the most important consequential elections of our lifetimes. Sometimes that's a cliche, but it looks that we are at an inflection point. And one of the issues, Supreme Court gave a few decisions some time back, which makes a lot of people nervous.
Mhm.
Roe v. Wade was overturned. A lot of people fear that Republicans in particular might be thinking of doing something at the federal level, which takes away rights of women and maybe rights of other people in future. We don't know how far they're planning to go. Do we in you have an advocate who will protect our rights, at least in New York State?
Yeah, and that's Proposition 1 that's on the ballot. So Proposition 1 is to codify abortion rights in our Constitution. So it's going to enshrine the rights we already have now in New York in our Constitution. So if, God forbid, there's a federal ban on abortion, New York State can say, look, we have states' rights. It's in our Constitution, and it provides added protection. So a lot of New Yorkers feel complacent that abortion rights are protected, but I think it's extremely important that people vote and support Proposition 1 on the ballot this election, so that right can't be taken away in New York. Because you're right, there's the federal ban on abortion is a threat, is absolutely real. We see what's happening in Texas, and it's horrific. Women are dying in Texas because they're not getting the care that they need. And there's a lot of misinformation about abortion. In New York, you can't, have a third trimester abortion, unless it's like, health and safety of the mother or for medical purposes. So it's not like people are having third trimester abortions in New York. Uh, I think it's horrific that we've lost a right that, you know, women growing up now have less rights than they did in the past, and it's really scary. So, we in New York support women's rights to choose. We want to make sure that right is protected, no matter who is in charge. The Republicans were very close of winning the governorship in the last election, and if they ever Republicans come back and take back the government, absolutely they would make a move to ban abortion on the state level. So if we enshrine abortion rights in the Constitution now, that right will never be taken away from people in New York.
uh, Craig, one more important issue, that the Democrats have been speaking for quite some time. Many people see the failure to codify Roe v. Wade by the Democrats as a failure on part of the Democratic Party. Another issue which touches people's lives, I think, more immediately than any other issue is gun safety. We have been talking about it, but still we see these incidents happening all over the country every other day. Is there anything you can concretely talk about? You think that that's something that can be done in that regard?
Yeah, and unfortunately, the U.S. Supreme Court weakened a lot of our gun laws in New York. But New York does have some of the strongest gun laws on the books already. If you have an unregistered firearm, just possession, the standard offer from the district attorney's office is 2 years jail, 2 years probation. Even if you have a legally registered firearm in New Jersey and you're caught with it in New York, 2 years jail, 2 years probation. I'm not saying you're going to get that, but that's the standard offer that all DA's offices work with. So it's really important that we do strongly prosecute those who have illegal firearms. One of the bills that I'm supporting is a 10-day waiting period for the purchase of firearms, because I think it's extremely important that law enforcement be able to do thorough background checks to make sure firearms don't enter the hands of those who are committed domestic abuse or who have mental health issues. So I think more needs to be done to ensure that guns don't end up in the wrong hands. And also, we got to, on the federal level, to get back the assault rifles ban, because no one needs a military weapon to protect themselves. So, I understand people who want, a gun to protect their home or for hunting, and there's all this misconception that Democrats are trying to take people's guns. No, we just want to make sure that people are safe in the community, that our children are safe, because there's too much gun violence in America. The United States has the worst gun violence out of all the other countries combined. And it's only here in America where you hear these mass shootings. And so it's really unfortunate that the gun lobby, hiding behind the Second Amendment, is putting people's lives at risk because we just want common sense gun regulation. Want people who own firearms are safe and are well trained, and that people don't needlessly die from gun violence.
It's surprising and shocking that 85% of the country support sensible gun laws, and still we're not able to do something about it. Craig, are there any other issues you believe that confront the district?
I think we touched upon a lot of good major issues in the district. I just think it's just important that we have a representation in Albany so that we can advocate for the people of Suffolk County who is not getting their fair share. And so it's all about fairness and making sure that people have a voice in Albany. And I'm excited to be that voice for the people.
Craig, it's so important for us to know our candidates. One thing I believe is that the reason the country is so divided is because people don't have direct contact with the leaders. It's just a narrative set by very few at the top level, and the whole country, takes their bidding from there. So I'm so glad that you could come today. You could speak, directly to our viewers. I would like you to tell us, why do you think you are the best candidate for the position that you're seeking?
Yeah, so first off, I want to thank all your viewers for watching and being engaged, because it is incredibly important, and you need to hold elected officials accountable. And so I definitely appreciate that. I think my background in law enforcement, in government, makes me very suited for this position. My opponent, it's a part-time job for him, and he is not getting what needs to be done for the district. And I want to listen to the community, work together with the community to ensure that we get the funds that we need and to improve the quality of life on Long Island. And I've worked with the Senate and the Assembly, with the governor's office. I have those relationships. I have a good relationship with the chair of the Senate Finance Committee. I will be able to bring the money into the district. And also being in the majority party, I will have a relationship with the governor. I was with the governor's office before. I know how that office works, and I think I'll be very successful to ensure that Suffolk County finally gets its fair share. And I'll be partnering with Assembly Member Steve Stern in Huntington. Steve Stern has been a fierce advocate for our community, but he needs a partner in the Senate. So I'm going to be partnering with Steve Stern so he can help move legislation through the Assembly. I'll be able to move legislation through the Senate. The problem now is my opponent, anything he sponsors just dies in committee. And that's just the reality of being in the minority party in Albany. You just can't get things done. You can't get your bills aren't prioritized. So I will, with partnering with Steve Stern, we will move our bills through both chambers of the legislature and work closely with the governor to sign those bills into law. So I am really excited to work with you, with other community leaders, and with Steve Stern to improve the quality of life for everybody in Suffolk County.
Craig, one important, should I call it a phrase, should I call it a war cry in this election that we have seen is the importance for decency and kindness. I think that has been, something that has been, going out of fashion for some reason. I would like you to say a few words on why decency and kindness is still so important in the public sphere.
Yeah, and I'm really bothered by all the divisiveness in our country. Used to sit at the Thanksgiving table, Republicans, Democrats. We respected everyone's beliefs, and there was not this fighting. And right now, we're so divided as a country, and we're also divided as a counties. Suffolk County is it's split as well, and very divided. And there's a lot of attacks, a lot of name calling, and I'm really troubled by the level of discourse that's in politics. And I think it's extremely important that people with integrity represent the people. I don't care if you're a Republican or a Democrat. If you have integrity and you're wanting to work for the betterment of the community, I think that's fantastic. And I think the problem we have now is too many politicians are only looking to benefit themselves. There's a lot of corruption. There's a lot of people who are selling their integrity to benefit themselves politically. And I think that's one of the unfortunate things that we're seeing in American politics right now. So my focus is working closely with Republicans, Democrats, anybody, being respectful of everyone's beliefs, everyone's background, because I recognize everyone has grown up in different environments, they have different beliefs, and that's what makes America great, is all the diversity of ideas, diversity of backgrounds, and that's something that we should cherish. And we shouldn't attack people just because of their political beliefs or persuasions. So I think I would like to see the tone and the rhetoric be toned down, and that we all love our communities. We want what's best for the community, and that we should work together, and work with our neighbors, and be respectful of each other.
Thank you for those words, Craig. Craig, we are a diverse community. We are a very open community. We are a very accepting community. Still, we have incidents of hate crime not too far from where we are in the Suffolk County. Anything you would like to say to that?
Yeah, and what I love is that our communities always come together whenever there's any acts of hate. Hate has no home in Suffolk County. And when there is an attack on one member of the community, it's an attack on every member of the community. And I love to see the unification of our community, all different religions, backgrounds. We come together and we unite as one. And we stand up with one voice that we will not tolerate hate, we will not tolerate discrimination, and we are one community. So I think it's great to see that when there are acts of hate, that the community comes together. But obviously, we want to work to ensure that those that commit hate in our community are punished and held accountable, because that is completely unacceptable. And I definitely appreciate the community coming together and uniting as one. Republicans, Democrats, we come together and we support our community and we support our members, and we are one great community. And that's something that I take pride in, that our community comes together.
Craig, with those encouraging words, we thank you for taking out the time today. We wish you all the very best for the rest of the campaign, and it's not too far. I guess we're in the home stretch now.
Yeah, it's coming close, and I'm excited that it's going to come to the end soon. I got my last filing deadline on Monday, so I'm almost done with fundraising. So I'm excited about that. Now it's all about spending all the money we've raised and getting our message out, because when a lot of independent, persuadable voters hear about my background in law enforcement and in government, they vote for me. And so we have a very great chance of winning this election. And I definitely appreciate your support.
Thank you so much for talking to us today.
Yeah, thank you so much.